Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker Show. This is your midweek roundup of all things Maker and embedded and lovely. And we are back after a week off. I took a week off last week because I was recovering from running a very, very long distance. But for those of you that know what I'm talking about, thank you for your support. I made it. I did finish the race on time. And for those of you that wanted to support the charity side of things, the charity fundraiser for Mind UK is still ongoing. There's a link to it in the description of this video. Now, onto the fun Maker and DIY stuff. We have a really interesting show this week. Linux on even tinier and tinier computers, wonderful upcycling projects courtesy of the Raspberry Pi blog, a new conference for people who are interested in Edge AI from Edge Impulse themselves, and much, much more. So, let's get on with it. Up first, we have a Linux on Arduino project from Naveen. Now, Naveen has been a part of our project hub for a very long time and always contributed sort of amazing projects. But when I heard Linux on Arduino, I wasn't particularly impressed because, I mean, the Arduino Pro Potenta X8, is a Linux board. Until I heard that he'd been running Linux on an Arduino Nano. Now, not just an Arduino Nano, that is what is running the Linux here, but there's also an Arduino Uno in this project too. The Arduino Uno is in charge of the screen here and this rather nice little PCB keyboard. But here's the kick. This is an Arduino Uno and an Arduino Nano, but it's the newest variations of them. So this is not the Arduino Nano with an ATmega328P chip on it. No, this is the Arduino Nano ESP32. And if you'll remember our last show a couple of weeks ago, we covered a development board which runs Linux with the ESP32C3 chip. And it just so happens that the ESP32 variant of the Nano runs with the... Did I say C3? ESP32S3 is what I meant to say. And I believe the Olimex board we talked about a couple of weeks ago was also the ESP32S3. So there is previous running Linux on this chip. But this is lovely because this is already a little self-contained computer, essentially. Anyhow, I've let my enthusiasm run away with me. Let's explain this a little bit better. Or even better, you could come and find the link in the description of the video and read Naveen's write-up yourself. But essentially, this is what we have. We have an Arduino Uno here. And the reason this is here is simply because it has the form factor for stacking shields on top of it. And this little Adafruit screen just stacks neatly on top of the Arduino Uno and just works without any fuss. The same goes for this nice little PCB keyboard. It plugs in via a... I don't know what these tiny... This is Stemma QT or Sparkfun quick-sized, I believe, and there's one of those on the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi, maybe not the Minima, I'm not fully certain about that. And that plugs into this little PCB keyboard right here. However, the star of the show is, as previously mentioned, the Nano ESP32. And to find out exactly how it was all done, you have, as always, a wonderfully written up project by Naveen, including, as you can see here, a bunch of code. I believe this is the Uno firmware. And what's happening here, essentially, is the Uno is just a serial host for this. So it's taking care of what's going on with the PCB here. It's taking anything from the PCB keyboard and putting it into the buffer, and taking anything from the buffer, from the Nano, and putting it onto the screen. And it's doing all of that via serial. The Nano ESP32 communicates everything via serial to the Arduino Uno, and the Uno just takes care of input and output from there. And that's what this code is about. But of course, everyone wants to see the main thing, which is Linux booting up on an Arduino. So Naveen's put together a 5-minute video showing it off, including all of the things you'd expect, like looking at the Linux file system and it running Linux commands. But this is the moment where it all boots up. And I don't know about you, but for some reason, even after all these years, when you see an unlikely amalgamation of things stuck together, running Linux, it just brings me an immeasurable amount of joy. And I have no idea why. And yeah, as I say, if you want to find out more about this, there's a link to it in the description of this video. There's the video from Naveen is also in the body of this project. And as always with Naveen's projects, it is wonderfully explained from start to finish, and it includes all of the code and everything you need to replicate this yourself if you would want to. And yes, I love the idea of running Linux on smaller and smaller things. The extensor version of Linux running on ESP32 chips is something I'm sure we're going to see cropping up in a bunch of different projects. And in the off chance that you might be asking yourself why not? Now, I've made no secret of the fact that outside of synthesizers, which will always be the top DIY maker subject for me, a close second is upcycling old tech. It doesn't matter whether it's a broken camera that you're now turning into a retro gaming device, or whether you're taking an old radio and trying to pretty much retain its functionality, just bring it back to life using new digital means. Basically, take something old, stick an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi in it, and make it do something cool is one of my favorite genres of maker-ness, if there's such a thing. which is why I was so happy to see this 10 amazing upcycling projects post on the Raspberry Pi blog. Now, this is a blog post reminding you that they have a magazine called the Magpie Magazine. It is a physical print magazine, and just a reminder, if you want a Raspberry Pi Pico W, you get one for free when you subscribe to the magazine. Now, I understand that magazine subscriptions are somewhat an old school thing to some people, but I really love the idea of holding something physically. That's why I still buy books about programming. And if you do still want to read Magpie, by the way, I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize this. 3 to 4 weeks or something after every Magpie magazine is physically out, they put a free version of it as a PDF up on the Magpie website. So you still can read that magazine on your computer or on tablets or whatever. However, I would say support them. Supporting print media and actual writers is something that you can do if you're concerned about AI taking your job. But anyway, this is all a bit of a womble, a bit of a ramble from an ex-journalist. Back to the matter at hand. So there are 10 amazing projects, as you would imagine, here. And I'm going to whip through them very quickly because I just want to focus on one of them, really. That when I saw it, I immediately realized I wanted to put it in this week's Electromaker Show, even though the project itself is from some years ago. But this is, for example, taking an old French terminal box device and turning it into a new laptop. And this one is lovely as well. This is taking an old Polaroid camera and updating it using digital means. I could spend a lot of time on any one of these things. This is turning an old Victorian mirror into a magic mirror, taking a broken Wii U controller and giving it a new lease of life as a retro gaming machine. This is just so lovely. This is a command line YouTube browser. Anyway, all of these things are definitely worth looking at, but this is the one that I want to concentrate on. This is a Tomy turn-in turbo dashboard that's been turned into an arcade for running the old arcade machine Outrun. Now, just to give a little context, this is Bert the Stormtrooper Reviews channel, and this is the original Outrun machine from Sega, which was an incredible thing for its time. Obviously, if in modern terms, the graphics are very, very old, but the machine itself had haptic feedback. It would move you around, and obviously, like many arcade driving machines, being able to get in and actually drive and feel the movement is sort of amazing. It was a little bit before my time, but I was pretty obsessed with games like Ridge Racer, the arcade versions of those, which had very similar kind of feel to them. But that only makes what was actually made using this Tomy turbo turning dashboard even more incredible. But yes, thank you, Bert the Stormtrooper Reviews. I hope you don't mind me showing a couple of seconds of this. I just wanted to show people the original idea. So, how did CircuitBeard, who is the maker of this project, turn a Tomy turn-in turbo dashboard into an Outrun arcade device? Well, he did it in a really amazing way, several amazing ways. Firstly, this dashboard you're seeing here is a custom printed dashboard with 7-segment display and a rev counter, which you will see working if I skip ahead ever so slightly. And this is the arcade game Outrun. However, the heads-up display is accurate. This is taking actual callback from the game code and using those figures in order to update this heads-up display. The steering wheel, as you can see, is steering the car, and the gear stick from the original game, the original toy, is what is used for acceleration and braking, which is, again, amazing. A couple of other little points, you can't hear it. I mean, I'll turn this on for a second. There is sound. There's a speaker inside it. He's hidden the volume control for that speaker inside the old battery case of the toy because it's not using that battery case anymore. The key turns it on, and the button starts a game. He's used all of the original retro parts of the case without destroying any of it, added so much to it, and it's just wonderful. If you would like to find out more about the project, there's a fantastic write-up on the CircuitBeard website. And like I say, this isn't a new project. This was something that they did back in 2017. It just resurfaced into my attention because of that wonderful blog on the Raspberry Pi website. And yeah, if you look down through this, it's just incredible, the amount of detail that he went into in order to make it still look normal, to not actually break anything that goes on inside it, to make it look as much like the original toy as possible, but yeah, get all of this new functionality out of it. And there's a lot of very clever stuff in here, like steering done using a potentiometer here, and a custom PCB attached to the original device. And oh, one other thing that I thought was quite nice. Long story short, there's a lot of fantastic hardware in here that is explained in great detail in the blog post, and I would like you to read that. However, someone pointed out after the fact that the original Tomy turn-in, the original Outrun arcade machine had haptic feedback. As you saw at the very start, it didn't just have haptic feedback, it moved you around and stuff. Now, obviously, you're not going to be moved around in a chair with this, but he added a vibration motor, so now it has haptic feedback. And you can hear the vibration motor working. So yes, upcycling an old kid's toy into a working arcade machine. It's just a wonderful project. It is complete. It is really beautifully done. It preserves the original while making it do something new. It's absolutely what I love. There are 9 other fantastic examples of this on the Raspberry Pi blog. This one especially is so cool. Taking an old serial joystick and making it USB. And of course, as mentioned, if you are interested in this kind of stuff, the Magpie magazine really is worth the money. It's the only magazine that I am still subscribed to. I did get a subscription gifted to me once, and it's the only one that I've continued with my own money. I do think it is genuinely worth it. Now, this was sort of an inspiration to me, because there's several other projects like this that I wanted to feature in this week's show, but for time reasons I've had to cut most of them out, but there are a couple of others that I really do want to show. And first among them was this wonderful update of an old pre-war Wurlitzer jukebox. Now, this picture is sideways. Let's go down to a picture which is not. This is an absolutely beautiful old Wurlitzer jukebox that would run 78 records back in the day, and it was delivered basically sight unseen to someone as a gift, which is a kind of amazing thing to receive. But they realized that in its current state, they weren't really going to get that much use out of it, and it was prime for modification. So what they've done to it is basically taken an old school jukebox, retained its old school amp and speaker, but given it a digital makeover. Now, of course, the issue with doing things like this is how do you bring something up to date without completely changing the way it looks on the outside and without potentially damaging it in ways that mean it could never be restored? Well, it turns out that the original choice buttons here are so well laid out that the middle panel here is almost exactly the right size to fit a 7-inch screen in, and that is exactly what the maker, Carter Perrier, has done. If you'd like to find out more about this, of course, there's always links to everything I talk about in the show in the description of the video. There's timestamps as well down there, so you can find out all of this kind of stuff. But yes, the big reveal. This is how it looked like before, and now this is what it looks like with the screen inside it. And they even went to odds to make sure that they've picked something that didn't look particularly too modern, so it would fit into the original idea. And if you want to see it in action, well, they even provided a video as well. Now, as you're likely able to hear, this is not the kind of music you would find on an old 78 in a jukebox anywhere, which, if anything, makes this even cooler. The idea that you're able to bring modern music to an old Wurlitzer jukebox and hear what it would sound like through those speakers is something that really does appeal to me. Now, there's a lot more to this than just sticking a Raspberry Pi inside it. This needed some serious repair doing to it, and despite having not that much in the way of electronic knowledge, Carter did actually fix this. They got some new bits and pieces for it, put it all back together, and made it so it would work with the original speaker, as I said. And this, again, is, as I've said many, many times, this is something that really does appeal to me. They've taken something old and beautiful, and something that, frankly, unless it was got a hold of by the right kind of creator, would never make sound again, would never really be used again. And by adding a touchscreen to it, and that allows them to play their entire music library through it, yeah, this thing will get used every single day from now on. And it's been done in a way that isn't particularly destructive, that retains its beauty, as it were. I really love projects like that. In fact, I'm going to say right now, I'd love to do a full special episode about different kinds of upcycling old tech projects. If you do have a favorite of your own, please do post it in the comments of this video. But yes, this I thought was worth a special mention. It's from a little while ago, but it jumped immediately to my mind when I saw the Pi blog, and I thought it's time we talked about that again. And in a similar vein is the Udoo X86 interactive vintage radio. Now, Udoo make a bunch of different single-board computers, and they are another single-board computer manufacturer who have made x86 single-board computers. Interestingly, we'll be talking about another very interesting x86 single-board computer, the LattePanda Sigma, later in this episode. But way back when they released the Udoo X86, they realized that the board itself was perfectly placed to be the brains of an incredibly smart, upscaled alarm clock. So what they did is they found an old vintage radio body that wasn't working anymore, and they repurposed it by sticking an Udoo X86 board inside it. Now, there are some similarities to be found between the Wurlitzer build we just looked at and this one, in that they are both vintage music-making devices that have been updated by putting screens inside them. The difference here being that rather than taking the entire amp system, they're really just keeping the case and the speaker, and there's a good reason for that. First things first, they stick a touch LCD screen in there, much like in the last one, to control it, and this will be connected to the x86 computer. But here's the kicker. The x86 board, the Udoo x86, has a speaker amp already in it, so all you need to do is just just plug the speaker directly into it and you're ready to go. Really nice touch, that. And what it's running is, well, a version of Android which is designed for x86 for this particular Udoo board, which allows you to have the Play Store on it and whatever else you would want from wherever else you could do, with basically an Android tablet. That's essentially what this is. It's an Android tablet in a nice box. And of course, you can have it set up to just show the time. And the beauty of it is that back when this project was made, I'm sure that these were the cheap and good parts that you could fit in it. But were you to try and do something like this again right now, you could probably get a much higher definition LCD screen to put inside it for about the same amount of money. And yeah, you find these old radios that don't really do anything anymore that are all more or less the perfect size to put something inside at pretty much every market that you go to. So again, very similar to the other project, but I thought also worth a mention. And that Raspberry Pi blog article really just set my mind buzzing. I'm going to be having a look through the Electromaker archives over the next little while to see if I can come up with a bunch of other ones and do the great Electromaker upcycling special at some point over the next few weeks, if that's something that you'll be interested in seeing. If you are enjoying the Electromaker Show, it would mean a lot to me and to all of us involved in making the show if you would make sure that you are indeed subscribed to the Electromaker YouTube channel. And other things that you can do include clicking like on this video. I know it gets annoying when YouTubers ask for likes, but it doesn't just show us that you like it, it shows YouTube that you like it as well, and makes it far more likely that they will recommend it to other like-minded people. One other thing that you can do for convenience is when you have subscribed to this channel, the subscription button will turn into a drop-down menu, and you can select all notifications from there. Now, this will mean that when you visit the YouTube site, you will get notifications in the top right corner. A little flag will show up that there's a new episode or a new video on the Electromaker YouTube channel. We typically only put out 1 to 2 videos per week, so you won't be getting massively spammed from us. But if you are subscribed to a lot of YouTube channels like I am, currently around 2,500 on my main account, it's very handy to turn on notifications for the things that you actually want to see when they come out. And if you would like to see the show on a weekly basis, that's a very good way of doing so. Of course, and as always, the best way that you can support us, however, is by shopping at the Electromaker shop. Yes, at electromaker.io/shop, we sell everything from Raspberry Pi, Arduino, Nordic Semiconductor, everything from SeeedStudio and Adafruit and Sparkfun. We stock pretty much everything from everyone, and that is the primary way that we get anything done. We don't have any direct sponsors. We don't run YouTube ads, for example. We don't have a Patreon. We don't run any sponsors on our podcast. It's all just done via the shop. And if you would like to support us and allow us to continue doing this, it would be great if you could look there next time you want to buy a gift for someone, start a new project, or maybe buy 10,000 of something very specific for your work. Have a look at the Electromaker shop. That will be great. So thank you for your patience during this middle of the show asking you to do things part. Let's get back to the fun stuff. It is time for the Electromaker Product of the Week, and we do have a new Product of the Week, which I will talk about in just one moment. But before I do, it is time to announce the winner of the Nordic Thingy 53. Here is Robin talking about the Thingy 53 in a Product of the Week episode from a little while ago. And of course, I had a break since then, so this is the first show back since that competition started. And without any further ado, let's see who is going to win this tiny little powerhouse Bluetooth Low Energy Edge AI Ready Dev Kit. And the winner of the Nordic Semiconductor Thingy 53 kit is Bolly1983, who says it's going to go in my Roomba so it can sense air quality and potentially activate room ventilation if necessary. We shall see how good the mic works with the noise, but I'll check if I get something useful out of it as well. I'm almost certain that using Edge AI, you'll be able to do some very clever stuff with the Roomba, listening to the sound the Roomba makes and then training a model to ignore it and seeing what sound you get outside of it. There's an idea for a project. Anyway, congratulations, Bolly. We'll be in touch with you as to how we can get this thing out to you. Thank you to everyone else who entered this Product of the Week competition. If you did not win, commiserations, but we have a new Product of the Week to show you right now, which we'll be giving away, and it might be one of the biggest giveaways we have ever done on this channel. Yes, our product of the week this time is the LattePanda Sigma, which might just be one of the most powerful x86 single-board computers out there. They bill it as a single-board server, and it does have dual gigabit Ethernet ports, but it's a lot more than that. I mean, the Zima board is a fantastic thing. We've featured it on this show before. It is a very cheap x86 single-board server designed just for being a server. The LattePanda Sigma is absolutely designed to be a server, but this could be used as a desktop computer. The specs on it are actually more powerful than the desktop computer that I had before the one I built to make the Electromaker Show on. It's got an i5 13th generation CPU, 16 gigs of RAM, dual gigabit Ethernet ports, and that alone is a fairly powerful basis for a computer. Various versions of it come with an M2 slot NVMe SSD drive on it too, with various sizes depending on the amount you spend on it. But this is one of the LattePanda line of boards, so you get that built-in Arduino side of it as well. It has an ATmega32U4 chip in it, which, let's say it together, the same chip from the Arduino Leonardo and the Pro Micro, which can work as a USB HID device, and it just sits happily in the board, and you can just use the outside pins in order to access all of the pins of the ATmega32U4. So that alone is just a nice start for any kind of small NUC style SBC, but the fact that they're calling it a single board server is absurd, because if you had this as a home lab server, it would be incredibly powerful. Now, as always, Robin's going to give this a much better rundown than I ever can. That's why we have the product of the week. Here's an engineer, and these guys go into a lot more detail as to what these things are capable of than me. My job is just to say what makes them sort of awesome and give them away, and I really hope that I could hold one up to the camera. There's supposed to be a Sigma on its way to me so that I can do a full review more from the hobby user perspective, but due to wonderful international post regulations and trying to send things to Germany, it has not managed to get to me just yet. Hopefully that will happen quite soon. But I'm very, very excited to get my hands on one of these, and I'm very, very excited to give one away, which is what we are going to do in just a moment. Now, as you can see here, there's a number of other slots as well. I said there was the M2 key slots for NVMe SSDs. There are, in fact, 2 of those. There's also an E key slot, which is perfect for attaching a Wi-Fi module to the board if you do want to use it not connected to Ethernet, again, which puts it more in the sort of weird single board computer slash desktop that doesn't require a wired connection thing if you did want to do that. You can also add a SSD module for 4 and 5G communication, making this a completely mobile thing that doesn't require Wi-Fi networks as well. It is 146 by 102 millimeters, so it is single board computer sized, bigger than a Raspberry Pi, but still very, very small, smaller than any mini ATX motherboard even, and this is, as you can see, something that is completely built in altogether. It has its wonderful fan built into it, which is designed to keep everything running cool. Now, if you would like to find out more about it, do head to that article. Also, our shop page has some more information from LattePanda on it too. And if you are interested in getting a hold of one of these, as I mentioned, it's going to cost you more than most average single-board computers because of its massive step up in power. The version that we have here is $695. There are other versions available as well, with various different configurations as well. But as mentioned, this is not a Raspberry Pi, and it's not even a Zima board, despite also being x86. It is an absurdly powerful computer that could be used as a server for running AI tasks. My original thought, and one of the things I'd love to try with it when mine comes, is to run some kind of stable diffusion image generation thing on it, and maybe some kind of ChatGPT variant on it, so that I could have a dedicated server computer that I could just send requests to, and it would return images and AI generated things to me without having to use any of my processing power that I use for other things. It's just a random idea that may not work, but it's the first thing that came to mind when I saw that there was such an absurdly powerful yet tiny machine like this. Anyway, that's enough insane enthusiasm from me about this. The LattePanda Sigma is a board that I find very exciting. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on one and playing with one, but despite the fact that mine never made it here, one will be coming to one of you, because yes, as always, this is a product of the week, and we will be giving a LattePanda Sigma away to one of our viewers. And the competition runs the same way as it always does. A winner will be chosen at random next week. The rules for entry are very simple. You need to be subscribed to this Electromaker YouTube channel that you are watching this show on, so basically just scroll down and check that you are subscribed. You need to leave a little description in the comment section of this video saying what you would do if you won the LattePanda Sigma, and you also need to leave the hashtag Sigma, S-I-G-M-A, Sigma. And that way we can search through all of the entries and choose one at random on next week's show. This is potentially the biggest thing we've ever given away on the Electromaker Show. I'm really looking forward to getting it out to one of you. Good luck with the competition, and we will be back with this next week. We're going to start off at Kickstarter for a very quick funding website things. Now, this is a Kickstarter from SeeedStudio, which is an interesting thing because SeeedStudio generally just make things and then sell them. I mean, that's what we know them for. They are an online marketplace that makes a lot of wonderful things. But this time, I think they've taken a slightly different approach because they clearly have something very special here, but they want to crowdfund it to make sure that they get absolutely everything right and get them out in the quantities that they want to get them out on time. And what am I talking about here? Well, this is a LoraWAN tracker called the SenseCap T1000. Now, all Terminator T1000 series jokes aside, this is a really interesting device idea. It is a credit card-sized LoraWAN sense communicator. And when I say sense communicator, we're talking temperature, humidity, light, and movement. And these are all built into one PCB with a super low-power MCU on it, and GPS, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth connectivity. The idea being that, oh, and by the way, it's IP rated. It's IP65 rated, which means that you don't want to dunk this thing underwater, but it should survive dust ingress, it should survive rainstorms. You could wear this thing around your neck or put it in your pocket, or as you saw in the video perhaps just earlier, you could stick it inside a box that needs to be transported in a certain temperature range without being bashed around too much, like people sending fresh produce, as I think is what they mentioned there. Yeah, this is a LoraWAN device. And in this video as well, quite interestingly, they talk about the helium network, and I think we're going to have to do some kind of overarching section on the Electromaker Show about different LoraWAN networks and how they work, and how you might want to start using them in your projects and things like that. But this one, there's a bunch of networks it can work with. They talk about helium. But yeah, there's a lot of things about this that are really nice. It seems to be designed in a way that is really interesting. As you just saw there, there's a really satisfying little magnetic click for recharging it. A charge should last you anything between weeks and months, depending on what you're doing with it. And it's just a really nice way of tracking things, whether it's yourself, whether you want to keep yourself safe to be able to broadcast GPS coordinates, or whether you want to put it with the assets that you're transporting with your company, all of that kind of stuff. So the Kickstarter goes on to give a few potential use cases. So this is just showing the indoor and outdoor positioning side of things. But for example, things like connecting it to devices. So yeah, is this something that you want to, if you have equipment that you want to loan out and you want to keep an eye on it, well, stick one of these to the side of it, because it can monitor everything from temperature to light to movement. So it can tell if, for example, something that is supposed to vibrate a lot but not necessarily get dropped, well, you can probably work out whether that's happened by the force readings on the movement sensor, for example. The other thing that I really like is that they've put a real emphasis on the idea of there being a thing that you can press this button twice and it will send out an SOS via GPS. There are various devices that do this. In fact, I have friends who do very long distance adventure-y sort of running stuff, and they have specific devices that are designed to do this, send out GPS SOSs if they get into trouble. I'm going to go ahead and bet that this will come out a lot cheaper than those professional and rugged devices. This is not to say that you should not use those. Those things are designed to be very, very dependable, but it's just an interesting point that people who wouldn't necessarily even think of getting something like that could probably afford to do this. Now, there's a lot more information on this page that I could go through every aspect of it, but I won't. All I will say is that one of the things that I do think is really interesting about this is the fact that it is a LoraWAN device. We've had other devices that are cellular devices that do similar things to this, but LoraWAN has a number of advantages, one of which is that it is very, very cheap. So what you're seeing here is that this is going through various different places, and it's working with helium, it's working with the Things network, it works with various different LoraWAN networks, and somewhere on this page, and I don't know if it's 100% true, but it says something along the lines of the amount of data transfer that you're doing with something like this would cost, say it would cost $3 with a normal 4G or LTE SIM card, it costs only 5 cents on the LoraWAN network. Now, don't quote me on that. I may A, have forgotten that quote and not got it wrong, or B, the quote might not be accurate. You never know with these things. But LoraWAN is said to be much, much cheaper. Now, the important thing, how much is this costing if you want to get a hold of one yourself? Well, the development kit costs just $22, and this is a development kit using the Wio Tracker 1110 development kit with a bunch of different Grove things you can plug into it. I think this is essentially just the MCU broken out into a development board. You would need to get different things to plug into it in order to make it work the same way as the actual tracker itself, I think. However, if you just want the tracker, that's only $28. And this is the early launch special Kickstarter thing, but $28 with this special snap hook for attaching it to you around your neck or something, a little lanyard. There's another version which is $29, which is just the SenseCap tracker without this lanyard. It being Kickstarter, there's a bunch of different ways. If you want to get 50 of them, you can get that for $1,395, by the way, just in case you're interested in buying 50 of them. yeah, when a company like SeeedStudio puts something up on Kickstarter, it's safe to assume that they already have something built and ready to go. They're just looking for the money in order to actually get that thing out and on the shelves, as it were. So I don't think you have to worry specifically about this compared to other Kickstarters about it ever appearing or not. I think this is a thing that is ready to go. And if you're worried about them reaching their pledge goal, well, at the time of me talking about this, they already have reached it more than twice over. LoraWAN's going to get more and more important as LoraWAN networks improve, and just because of the low power cost and the low general cost of it in terms of money, I have a feeling this is going to be the first of many devices like this. But it is, yeah, interesting to me that this thing has come out and seems to be such a complete idea for a product already. If you're looking into asset tracking or looking for something for yourself to have, as it says, some kind of an SOS button, this is definitely something that's worth a look, especially considering how cheap it is. Finally, I want to very briefly talk about Edge Impulse's upcoming online conference called Imagine. And as you might imagine, it is a conference about Edge AI, given that is what Edge Impulse specializes in. Now, I'm going to try and keep this very brief, as this show has been full of unchecked enthusiasm on my part already, and I'm sure it's running long. This is on September the 27th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so whatever that is in your part of the world. For me, that's later in the day. And it is free to attend. You just need to click register and fill out your details here, and literally you fill this out and then you get your registration. It's as simple as that. There's nothing more to it. If you are interested in Edge AI or AI in general, this is definitely something worth taking a look at, because this is the people behind it. I mean, there's a really interesting array of speakers, some of whom I'm familiar with, some of whom I'm not. But yeah, there's people who are already involved with Edge AI. There's people who are involved in other companies that are part of the AI boom, as it were, on the embedded side, like NVIDIA. And a couple of the there's a lot of talks already listed here. A couple of the talks that really did jump out to me, one of which is AI Observability in the Era of Edge Intelligence, which I thought was just a very interesting title. I have no idea what it's actually about. I'm assuming it's going to have something to do with the idea of the ethics of knowing, what is an AI doing with the data that it is collecting about you. I might be completely wrong about that. I'm going to have to go to the conference and find out. The other one that really grabbed my attention is a deep dive into the art of data collection. Now, if you've ever tried to train your own model on data that you have collected, you will know that it's not easy. You have to collect a huge amount of data, and that data has to be collated in a way that works. And there are various ways around it. In fact, one of the biggest things that people learn when they're kind of getting into AI is that it's not just training of models that's the big thing. It's how do you work with this huge amount of training data? And some people go the other direction. There's some fantastic projects on Electromaker recently from Shakizat, I think is the username, who's been synthesizing data in order to come up with training data. So their most recent project was a vision AI project that was looking at whether there was a fire or not. And what they did is that they used software in order to generate images of fire, which aren't real, but they just look real, and then use that to train a model on so that it would actually be able to see what a real fire looked like. Do you see? I hope I explained that well. I probably did not. It's been a very long day. So, yes, if you are interested in this, please do register for it. Edge Impulse are good people, and they are probably the biggest name in no-code online model training, them and Newton AI for sure. And if you would like to know more about it, head to the link in the description of this video and you can register. And literally, I registered just before. You fill out your names, you press submit, and that's it. There is an invite in my email box waiting for me right now. That was our show for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for all of the support that you continue to show the Electromaker Show, and we will be back next week with another packed show. As for now, if there's anything you liked in the show, please do let me know in the comments. If there's anything you didn't like, especially let me know so I won't do it again. But as always, I hope you have a safe, fun, and creative week, and I'll chat to you very soon.